Yo, so I'm just going to be doing footage on Danny's RM2 team. Um, I coached them last week on the 22nd of June. I just thought it was a really interesting game because the coaching decisions I think can be quite useful for a lot of coaches. They're not crazy stuff. The level is relatively good. People can execute plans, but none of them were like so intense that you can't get something out of this. So I think this is a pretty good opportunity for me to share just kind of what I'm thinking and just kind of recapping a bit of the information that I shared. So before we start, this is Dandenong, they're the second highest team. This is RM2 Gold, I believe, yes, who are also undefeated. So it's kind of a high stress game. Both teams really want to win to secure that first spot. The first thing I said to the team was we're gonna just serve towards one. Right? I've never seen this Dandenong team. I haven't seen RM2 Gold play too much or train because I don't coach them. So my only strategy was serving to one first. The only reason I did this is because I wanted to test this setter, number 44 I believe, and see his ability to rotate and set, right? So his ability to rotate and set is going to determine whether or not he has a weakness and whether we should exploit it, okay? I also told Jeff, who's the setter, to set slightly higher and slower at first, and for the boys to get the, actually no, yes I did, and I told the boys to aim for 80% power and more control first, just to get their confidence up, because once they start swinging, get the confidence up, then they can hit harder and harder, and then they can increase the tempo. You must know that I don't know this team. I don't know Nick Bowman's team. I don't know how they train and stuff, so I didn't want to give them too much information, just give them one or two strategies to focus on at the very beginning. So here comes the pass. So immediately at this point, I've already told, I will be telling Austin, always aim for a corner, left or right? Because you got the hypotenuse, you got the angle, it's a lot longer. If you hit straight, from 3 meters to 9, is 12 meters only, whereas if you go across like this, someone who's smart can do that math, I'm sure it's more than 12. See, I'm telling him right now, to aim left and right. Okay. Consistent, going through the middle, great idea. I didn't instruct that they did it naturally. One thing I can tell is that 96 hits left, you see that it continues to do that. So I'm already taking that mental note in case that the opponents start to block that, right? So that's the first serve going towards 1. The pass goes towards 3, and then the setter struggles and then an ace. So at least we find that 44 is already kind of weaker passer, but it could be a fluke because the first serve of the day. One thing that I do encourage is try to keep that ball below the antenna height and obviously above the net. If we can do that, then we're going to have a relatively faster trajectory, lower trajectory, and a bit harder for the opponent to pass. Again, they shank it. So it's quite obvious that the boys should target this 44 person, continue the game strategy. They shouldn't change anything too much. Okay, so this is what I want to see. So this setter started from further back. He didn't have to rotate from his left to set. He's setting slightly in front of him here, okay? So the second thing I wanted to see was how far does he push this set? As you can see, it lands around this area, so he's giving us like 1 meter before the ball is even dropping. And the hitting area is actually kind of here, so a little bit more than 1 meter, right? So this is a very interesting thing because he's standing from here and he's setting out to here, it's not wide enough. So I would immediately note this. happens. Junhao does a good job to go off the hands. I will tell Junhao here to come slightly off the net more so that he can have a swing rather than coming so wide, because he's coming wide. He has to come in like this. His body is unable to go straight and get a proper swing on it. But he does something good with it. So yeah, this guy I'm telling him to come off it. Also, Austin shoots set slightly higher after that too, but that's not as big of an issue. So I'm not sure why the serve has changed. I will continue to serve here, it's working, but it happens, people forget. So immediately I noted here, this is very interesting, right? This overpass, yes, he's going for it, which is good. You will see me say this later, I will tell him to go left or right. This is not an aggressive overpass attack, it's allowing the opponents to recycle. We're lucky that he runs into the net, but we want to have we want to be active on the net, right? So like this is a little bit too casual, too, what's the word, passive. I would say window wipe the ball right, or change the direction at least if you don't get a chance to swing on it. Putting your hands up is also good with the backhands, which they attack it over, right? So, timeout court. At this timeout, I'm telling them what's working, what's not. So I'm telling them this position is working, let's continue to do it. My member says correct, but that's what I would say right now as well. I'd also be telling them to wipe the ball left and right. You see how with my wrist I'm going left and right? So that's about all. You only need to say one or two things. You continue to say 2, 3, 4, 5 things, they're gonna forget. If you want to say more stuff, you should speak to the individual, right? So I'll be like to Jeff, try to push out a bit wider. Or I'll be like to Jeff, slightly higher, slightly slower. Junhao, come further back when you approach. That way I can give more instructions without overloading the team. So I think I'm telling Austin and them about hitting the corners. So I'm just reiterating the things I've been telling them during the game, mid-mids. Okay. So let's see what Jeff does. Continues to serve to the left side like I instructed. So now this setup, he does his pre-arc to back set, but the interesting thing is he's more stable here. So I noticed that when he's stable, he does like to go backwards more. But after that, so I'll tell Jeff, it's too short. Whatever said it's too short, not wide enough. This is the interesting thing, because if Jeff starts to make the adjustment with his set and it starts to go wider and wider, the hitters have to adjust as well. You see later in the game that the hitters actually adjust without knowing that Jeff is going to set it wider. So what that means is the set's being short. So Alex and the other oppos are going to start in more. So they're adjusting to this, which is good. You're meant to do that. But I should have communicated to them that Jeff should communicate to them that he's going to set wider so that they should start wider. You see that a lot of the attacks in the opposite later, everyone is starting too inside the court, which is going to cause them to overrun the ball, need to sidestep and then fix it. So then I try to tell them over time to start outside the court parallel. But this is an interesting thing, right? Because I'm telling Jeff to push it out wider, but I'm not telling them to adjust. Albeit this is the first set to opposite. But it is something to be aware of, right? If you tell the setter one thing, you've got to be aware that the hitters have to be on the same page too. For the lower divisions, when the setter isn't consistent, you only give them one or two advice, like slightly higher, use more feet or whatever, right? Don't do too much like information, because they're already like struggling to keep the ball consistent and accurate. So in that situation, I would tell the hitters to do adjustments and won't say anything to the setter, right? I'll be like, okay, this setter is struggling to push it out wide enough, make sure you're ready for the shorter ball and stuff like that. For Jeff, he's a relatively good setter. So for me, I think it's okay to tell him what to do. I think he can execute it. So we had another teammate on our side all of a sudden. So this serve is really working towards this left side. It gives a massive start. So the ball is low. He doesn't get his hip under the ball and he digs it, which means that he's going to be very prone to setting the direction that his momentum is going. This is what we call positive set. If the set is going from this side to this side, most of the time, 90% of the time, he's going to be setting this direction. You seldom see a setup who does this, get the hip low, stop the momentum, and shoot the ball opposite direction, which is called a negative set, right? So, we're all around pretty good. The hit, I mean, let's see how it goes. I don't. So this is one thing I notice a lot about players in general, is that they like to go diagonally out, which means that their momentum is going to be coming in a diagonal, which is going to be harder for you to hit the line shot unless you jump off that net, like your spacing's off the net. So just for example, this is the net, you jump 1 or 1.5 meters off that net. So you have to have really good tracking and like ability to rotate your hip as well. My advice is to start going more parallel and cutting in. So you cut in and then go forward. Then that way, when you do your penultimate 45-90, you can hit the cross shot, or you can allow your body to rotate and hit the line shot. But this momentum here, jumping from this point, is a perfect set, right? If he's jumping from here, slide and perfect is arguable, but it's very difficult for him to hit this line shot, even with that full rotation, or not full, but pretty good rotation here, right? And then so it ends up hitting towards Another thing to think about is this is very specific, and it's not necessarily useful for every team. It's just more about like if teams start to do combinations, if you go forward and you take, rather than going wide, so like you're coming closer, then you can cut in a bit easier, right? And with this setter that's proficient like Jeff, you can assume that the ball's going to be roughly in this area anyways. You don't need to worry about it going too wide often. And if it's too wide, the setter will be able to adjust. If the setter's not really good and the ball's very inconsistent, then going wide can be useful, because then it allows you to reduce errors, but it's not a long-term fix. So again, that setup moving forward, and hence this set's going forward. So one of the dilemmas I really say that today. Even when Jeff was here, he's able to set it a bit wider. But this attack here is very conducive of this approach that's kind of like more diagonal. It forces your body to be too parallel to the net. It's going to mean that you're going to be hitting behind you slightly instead of between you and the net. It's going to be harder to track the ball in front of you between you and the net, because you're taking it side on. So now the ball is side on, it's behind Junhao relative to the net, right? So then, unfortunately for him, he has to try to hit this really sharp corner, but he can't because his body is in front of the ball, not behind the ball. That's from the approach. So you see me, I don't know if you can tell, but I actually tell him more straight, okay? Now, from a perspective of coaching against an opponent, I see Alex is much taller than this guy. I'm going to tell them, right? You don't need to set fast. If you try to set fast, it's going to force him into a position where he might be hitting lower. It's okay if you guys practice that and stuff. My advice would be to set higher, slightly tighter, not necessarily tighter, slightly higher, so that he can hit at the peak above the block, right? Use that height advantage. It's like a head taller advantage. If your tempo is something you continuously practice, it's fine. Just make sure that the tempo is high enough that Alex can hit at the peak of his vertical, right? I'm not sure you can tell, but on the sideline you can hear Nico. He's calling side out, he's going in and out. This is something that I do address later, because later in the set or second set, this team stops calling in the sideline, and you see me, I'll actually approach them and tell them you cannot change what you're doing. So for example, if they're always calling in and out, this team is now going to be relying on that a bit more, so that they don't have to call it as much. And if you guys are cheering for every point and then you stop cheering, subconsciously it tells this team that we're losing or something has changed. So you see in the second set, I'm over here, I actually go and tell them off. You can't stop calling, stop. I tell them to stay focused on the game, even if they're not on the court itself, but to continue to call in and call out, to call what you see and be loud for every point, right? Because then that realistically keeps the boys in the same mental state that they are in, and you're not changing any variables here. So yeah, so the opposites are all starting in now. Right now they're not getting punished for it, so there's no need to adjust. And partly because Jeff is setting a bit from 3 rather than 2.5, so the distance isn't going to be an issue as much. And it's actually okay to be a bit more in when Jeff pushes out wider. So there, this guy, he's alright when he's stable, right? He says opposite. That one you just got to be lower. He's on the line, I don't really say anything, right? I don't need to say anything. He's in the right spot, his body posture is a little bit off, that's it. I'm thinking whether I should say I'm not using with my poppy head. Okay, so this is something I noticed immediately once we start shanking the ball. It's actually a good pass in terms of like accuracy to 2.5. But the issue is Jeff is backcourt, it has to be off the net. So that's the first thing I'll say. Set it off the net. Aim for this blue line, and between these two blue lines you got more margin of error, right? Second thing is, when this continues to happen, I'll start to notice the reason that this happens. And the reason that this happens is, I'm telling you to pass off the net more because he's technically backcourt, right? The reason that they are passing so tight is because the platform is too low. The platform isn't close to the eyes enough, and then the legs aren't taking those extra steps to get the hip down. So the legs, they'll take the step there, and then instead of getting the hip down, they bring the platform down to try to intercept that ball. So what I tell them later is to get the hip lower, to keep that platform high, and keep that platform near the eye level so that they can track it a bit better. For now, I just tell him off the net. There's no point giving him too much information. So he goes high off the net, and it's not a 2.5, like it's not a perfect pass, but it's good enough. It's really good. Jeff is at a position where he can set 2-3 options, and they score for it. Right? And he's seeing me on the saying, good, well done, great pass. This is great pass. So we're still using that position one. It's okay, they missed it too high. I start to notice when they start missing their serves, the reason why. Most of the time, it's actually because the team throws the ball too low. So when you throw the ball too low, you're rushed to contact the ball. So sometimes you contact on the way up, sometimes the ball's already coming down, or sometimes you don't get a proper, you're not at the peak of your jump, so your timings are off. So I start to tell them to throw the ball a bit higher, give themselves a bit more time before they go for the serve. So if you see when he puts the serve, you see how high he passes it. Now, the ball's already dropping before he's already jumped, so and he hits it on the way up, and hence the ball goes up. All that's pretty cool. I give himself a bit more time, doesn't have to rush it. So this one, the shoulders come up, hip comes a bit forward, and then the platform is still very low, right? Platform's low, there's not much spacing for him. It's quite a good serve, it's quite deep in this situation. Like, you can practice the back pedal pass, you can practice lowering your hip and passing with your hands. Opening up space is very important to take these type of serves. But in my opinion, the best thing to do here is, obviously you're starting back, get your hip lower so that you have more space to pass with your platform. And he tries to break the platform to get it up, and it's a good effort, it's a really good effort. It's a difficult situation, but because there's not much space between his forearm, biceps and his chest, there's not much else he can do, if that makes sense. So taking on the hands here is good. Sure, it's slightly, like, not a perfect pass, but it's high enough that the distance can do something about it, and then they ultimately get rewarded. So one thing is, a lot of people, we get too focused on perfect passing, right? When we have a good setter like Jeff and a team that can hit off system pretty well, right? You don't need to focus so heavily on perfect passes. Just pass the ball high. Give the setter or the libero, whoever takes the opportunity to set it to one of your pins who have experience to hit, and let them make a decision on how they're going to hit and tackle this situation, right? Rather than giving the opponents a free ball, shanking it, etc. So this is what I often say to like newer teams. It's just pass high, doesn't matter where, just up. Gives everybody time to transition, gives the setter time to figure out that they need to go for the ball, if they're like ball watching or whatever, right? Gives him time to transition. He's in a good spot, he can see, like he's pretty far back. He's back enough that he can see him and the net in peripheral. You can't necessarily, it's not like perfect, but you can't really do anything else. You can't go too far back, right? So this is pretty good, in line with him is good. If he was closer, further up here, I probably would still be around there anyways, so it's good. Tracking the ball well, slow down, aiming for a corner. This is something for hand passing which is very interesting. I do want to address for more people because I do a lot. When your elbows come out wide like this, it's not too bad because his elbows are still relatively tucked. But what happens is when your hands and your elbows come out like a triangle, your hands aren't supported by your forearms, your bicep, and then your chest anymore, right? It's just your hands that take the ball. So my advice is to bring your elbows in to support your hands, so then your hands are supported by your forearms, biceps, and chest, hip, and core. So it gives you a bit more strength to prevent the ball from like going through your hands. Junhao is relatively strong here, so his hands are pretty strong, he sets as well, so it's not too much of an issue. But if for others, especially the juniors or people who are just not as confident with their hands, try to get them to bring their elbows in more so they can pass high and use more of their actual body, kind of like a chest pass. It's you have to understand hand passing is different to setting. Hand passing is you have no reason to disguise it, so you just want to get behind it as much as you can. Okay, so I've seen this, it's get hit, and then you get rewarded. Okay, so I'm not sure if you noticed that, but right now the set is in 4. This is the weakest rotation. This is the first time he's in front court. So when the ball is cut here, Austin goes for the just, which is really good. But you can also tell that this is not a proper attack from the opponent, right? His hands are barely above the net, no offense. So my reaction is the outside spiker, when the setter is front court, should always support the block in the middle, and the middle should now creep towards the outside, because the main options are the middle and outside. They haven't shown any threat from the back A yet. And generally speaking, the back A is not really a threat until maybe like premieres anyways. But this situation is correct to block this overpass. Obviously try to change direction. Thankfully, no one gets hurt. Sets a little bit low. And he's drifting a little bit. We can talk about this specific stuff for those who struggle with the connection. So the connection, reason why it didn't really work is because Jeff is here. You can see his shadows around this 2-3 meter mark. Whereas this middle Ed is in front of him, and his eyes only can see Jeff and the ball. You can't see this net. So you can't even see this middle blocker. So if the middle blocker blocks properly, he's gonna be in trouble, right? This is a spacing issue. Yes, at the high level, the middle should jump and trust the setter to put that ball there at the high level. But right now, they haven't established that many hits. This is the first set, right? They haven't established much connection yet. So then doing this type of play is probably not advisable. If you were to run something like this, I would much prefer Ed to be back here and running kind of like a 3 meter quick instead. That way you can see the net and the setup. It's a difficult attack. If another thing that needs to happen is he needs to jump earlier, right? The ball's already, Jeff is jump setting, the ball's already being released, and then this happens. So he's hitting the ball on the way up still, and he's already too close to the net, so he can't really redirect the ball at all. So that's a spacing issue and a timing issue. So I'm telling them to watch the front hands. The situation being that they need to protect, to cheat on the block. And not to worry about this guy. A tight pass is okay when you have a good setup because you can attack them too. They just have to be ready for it. So I call timeout in this specific situation because it's rotation 4. I don't know if the team knows about, like, if they can hear me. I call it to try to So I call it because this is the hardest rotation to get out of. I want to make sure that, and the passes have been showing that they've been too tight. So I want to address this as soon as possible before the opponents start to crawl back and get into the game again, right? So calling an early timeout is really good. You just use them as much as you can. One other thing you can do is, you see me speak to Hayden a lot directly to tell him to tell the team what to do, because I don't want to be shouting at everybody from the sideline mid-rally saying do this, do that, do this. I can tell Hayden, who is the captain, to go and speak to these individuals between points, right? Hayden will come off and on. Every time he comes off, I can tell him a bit of advice and tell him to come back on, and then tell the rest of the team. So yeah, my advice is rotation 4, find a way to get out of it early. If it means calling a timeout and trying to use it. You don't want the setter to be in this position for too long.